Every crisis is different, and I've heard so many PR companies say that there are 10 hard and fast rules you should follow. I think that's wrong, actually. The first thing is to just apply common sense to any situation. Very often people will say, well, you must fill the void, otherwise the story will run away from you. Depends what your situation is. If you've made a mistake, or you're not necessarily sure of the extent of a problem, again, look at News International. Didn't know how many reporters have been phone hacking, for instance. You've got to be very careful to go on the front foot unless you have the full facts. But the best thing to do is to have a system in place, have somebody who takes control. You know, what the police call it the control center. You have somebody who takes control in the company when there is a crisis, so there's not many different heads saying different things. You have an expert who understands the media, but is also at the top table, in other words, understands the problems, isn't just given a sort of sweeping statement to take care of, really understands what's going on with the company so they can advise you properly. And also, the most important thing is put a perspective on things. Very often, a crisis may seem the end of the world to a company when it happens, but in the media, it moves on in 2 days. So you have to be very careful not to give that crisis oxygen by going out making statements that just keep the story going. So I think you do need to prepare, but you need to apply common sense most of all. PR companies or PR agencies are better equipped to deal with a crisis because they have close relationship with journalists. In the case of my company, we work very much from the top down. We know the editors, we know what they're looking for, you can have a conversation with them and explain the issue very quickly. One of the biggest problems companies have is they're trying to communicate often with a junior reporter who's not necessarily passing the message up the line. So a story will appear, a headline sort of breaks before anybody's really had the chance to explain the issue properly to editors. So most of all, it's becoming a conduit to make sure the media know the full story. It's also bringing balance to a story. Very often, people jump to conclusions. They'll assume somebody's guilty or assume a company is screwed up, when frankly, it can be a much more complex issue. Maybe a supplier has let them down, or maybe it's a one-off situation. So putting a perspective on it, this is not something that happens all the time. It's a one-off, and we've made a mistake, and we apologise. It's about having relationships with the national media, the local media, or even the business media, and making sure you have a trust relationship as an agency, because clearly a CEO or a company in trouble are going to potentially spin the situation, whereas if you've got a close relationship with a journalist, you can explain precisely what's happened, put a perspective on it, and very often the crisis will go away. It's much better to have a PR company in-house working and understand the system and understanding the company and the issues around it in advance. But it's never too late to bring in a PR company when a crisis breaks, because PR agencies are used to dealing with crisis. They're used to dealing with a particular journalist that might be writing the story, or the organisation, and also they understand how to attack a particular crisis. So if it's online, for instance, there's often an opportunity to shut that down. There are various techniques that can be used to do that. Or if it's a newspaper, or potentially, again online, you can go to the law if it's libelous or slanderous, and potentially use the tools that are available to you. You can also use a press complaints commission. It gets a lot of criticism, but it also stops hundreds of stories appearing every year because it has very close relationships with the media. So if it's an intrusive story or inaccurate, and you can prove it's inaccurate, you can go to one of those organisations and get the story stopped or taken down.